Hello everyone and welcome back to another YouTube video from one of our students' games that was played in one of the tournaments Chess Evolve Academy is organizing online weekly. If you want to find out more information, be sure to check out our website chessevolve.com and read more about the tournaments we organize and some of the other events. So let's get into the game directly, and hopefully what I'm going to share with you today is going to be benefiting not only the player who submitted this game, but also the viewers. So in this game, a rated robot played, responded with e5 after e4, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. This is quite a popular opening that white can play. It's called the Italian, personally, I don't want to say that the move that the rated robot has played here is a mistake. Not at all. It's actually, in fact, a main line, knight to f6. But I think depending on the level that you are, you might want to play certain openings that actually do not give the opponent extra material. As you're learning to be a strong player, you need to find a way to improve upon your understanding, to your building up your fundamentals. And if you actually don't follow through with that, if you try to be fancy and play some lines that maybe are a bit too advanced, you're going to struggle to understand where you went wrong in the game, because you followed some moves that you read somewhere or you watched in a video, and suddenly you're getting into a worse position and you don't know why. So while I will of course describe and discuss what happens after knight f6 and I'll give some advice, I would probably recommend people who are still at the start to consider playing this move bishop c5 instead of knight f6. The good thing about this move is that black keeps this queen opened and the g5 square is controlled, which does not let white put the knight there. And if with white you play a move like d3, then black can continue with knight f6, and now knight g5 attacking f7 second time is going to be met with castle. And with black, we're not worried if white considers giving up two pieces for rook and the pawn, because this position tends to be much better for black. You have to trust me on this if you're a lower level player, because the two minor pieces get to connect much better, whereas the rooks, they need open files. And in this position, white has a rook, but they got no open file, and it's very difficult for them to actually open one. And so black's plan here would be to go maybe d6, get the bishop out, move the king back, maybe bring in the queen towards g6, the rook to f8, and start putting pressure on white's king. As for white, like I said, it's difficult to open up the position, so it's going to be more comfortable for black to play this. Now, of course, d3 is not the most popular move here. White either castles here or plays the move c3 with the idea to go for d4 and give themselves a second pawn in the center. So this is possible because this pawn in e4 is not attacked. So if black comes out and attacks it now, white can play d3 to protect the pawn, but in that case they won't get for the go forward, get the center with d4. But if they go d4, which is quite the main line, we capture, and now when they capture back, then we're gonna give this check. Bishop b4 check, escaping with the bishop from the attack. And you can tell me, but Sabina, there are two pawns in the center. What are we gonna do about this? They got a lot of space, we got nothing. Well, exactly, that's just temporary, because it's the reason why you move the bishop out with check, or with tempo, as we say in chess. White responds with knight b2. What we can do now is play d5. So we attack the center, and if they capture, we take back with the knight, and this is how we deal with the position. White only remains with one pawn in the center, but it is an isolated pawn, so we'll get the chance to attack it. There are a few other moves that you have to study. Of course, I can't go into all the details of this variation right now, but if you guys are interested, who knows, let us know. Maybe we'll make some videos about what you can do in various openings. But this is one that I believe it actually is more comfortable for a lower rated player to play, because you keep all of the pieces on the board, you don't give up a pawn to your opponent, and it's quite comfortable. There's nothing fancy that white can do to change the balance in this line. They will get the center, but as you saw, it will be an isolated pawn. When you play the move knight f6, you're closing the action of the queen to g5, and you allow this idea with knight g5, putting pressure here, and now you're not ready to castle. And please do not make the move queen e7. This would be a huge blunder, because in fact you're not really protecting that pawn that's attacked by two minor pieces, and the queen there doesn't actually defend. So white can just capture and then go back with the bishop, and they just won a pawn. So you're not really defending it. The only move that you can play to defend is this move 5, and this is exactly what a rated robot played, which is very good. So he knew this, and after capture, here is my issue, and I definitely want to point it out. So in this position, black has maybe 2 or maybe 3 moves that are pretty good. One of them is knight takes d5. The idea is that, you know, you're just capturing back with the knight, and you think you have a comfortable position. You want to develop your bishop here, get this one out as well, maybe castle, and feel good about yourself. But white has this sacrifice, and this is called the fried liver attack. I'm not sure who named it, but hey, that's it. Probably everyone who's watching this video has heard about it before. The idea is white sacrifices a knight for the pawn, but they get the initiative, which means they get moves with tempo, and they also get to keep black's king in the center. You have to go there to protect this knight, which was attacked twice, and then white starts putting pressure on the knight, and it's not really easy for black to deal with this. There's been quite a number of games played, some analysis, but I still feel that white's position is a bit more comfortable here. In fact, they even let you capture that pawn if you want to, but it's not really good. You have to protect your knight first, not to lose it, and then white plays d4 with the idea of bringing additional pieces to attack your king in the center, and it gets messy. But when you're a lower rated player, how are you going to memorize all this? How are you going to understand that you're giving up, you know, you're staying with your king in the center, but you have an extra piece? How are you going to benefit from that? I don't think you really do. I don't think it really helps you, in my humble opinion. So this is not the line I would recommend. The move that was played in the game was knight a5, and this is also not something that I recommend, but keep in mind, for lower rated players who are still building on their knowledge and building on their fundamentals, if you're gonna play this line, my recommendation would be to consider going knight d4. If you're gonna do this, the idea is basically that you move the knight from the attack, and you're moving it in the center, which is usually the place where you want to go. White typically should know to play this move c3, then you go back, this knight will come to d6, and eventually you will capture this pawn back. But even in this line, actually, it might take a bit of time for you to actually get the pawn back. If white doesn't know there's this trap, again, I feel like I should show a trap each game when possible, but you guys may know that white can try this move d6 to open up the bishop and still want to take the pawn. But here, queen takes d6, and don't you dare make this blunder with white. It's so natural, but is in fact a blunder. Oops, I didn't mean to put queen d6 a blunder. I meant to put knight takes f7 a blunder. My bad. So we're attacking the queen and the rook, and you may think, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna lose. But no, this is one of the oldest chess tricks. Queen to c6, attacking the bishop and the pawn, and when they're greedy to capture your rook, you will be less greedy and you won't take the bishop. Instead, you capture the pawn, attacking the rook. the rook has to go to f1, and then we got this idea with queen e4 check, or bishop g4 first to attack the queen, and it's gonna be trapped. Usually this is something that I like to show my students because it's a gorgeous smothered mate. Knight to f3 checkmate. So this is something you can be mindful about. I haven't really seen many people fall for this, but you can try it. But like I said, if white knows and they play c3 first, then you get to play this position, castle, and then you can take your pawn back, and you have to deal with a bit of attack, but you might be fine in this position. So you want to avoid allowing white to get to your pawn. You can play maybe h6 first, chase the knight away, and then go e4. There's quite some stuff that you have to analyze here to play. So that was the reason why I suggested that bishop c5 line instead. When you are still building up your knowledge, you gotta play things that keep the position balanced. After knight a5, basically, black allows white with an extra pawn because white has the opportunity to check you here. You need to play c6, which allows white to trade their extra pawn, and now they have an extra pawn. The older lines were bishop e3, bishop e2, or bishop d3, which were letting black eventually get c5, get the bishop here, chase this knight away, have more space in center, and eventually they get into the game. But more recently, I've seen a number of my students deal with this move, queen f3. So what this move does, it pins the pawn. So if you capture the bishop, white is going to capture the rook, and it gets messy again. It's an imbalance that you have to play with, and sometimes it's not easy to see all the moves because you don't have all the necessary knowledge to deal with this imbalance. So here, after queen f3, you can play the move bishop e7 maybe, or rook b8, and now if white captures, you take back, knight takes c6, queen takes c6, bishop d7, and the queen goes back, and you have to deal with the position with 2 pawns down. So it's fine for black, don't get me wrong, but at the higher level, if you put the engine, it's going to tell you it's fine for black. But when you play it yourself, how are you going to feel about the position knowing that you actually have so comfortable? Probably. So you probably will make the move like a rated bot did, which is bishop d7 to try to develop. But now it's gonna be difficult for black to come up with a way to get their pawn back. As you see, it's not easy. You're gonna have to trade some more pieces, and you try to avoid that. You have material down. He played well this h6 move, and then he traded the knight. Now he played bishop d6. So in a way, I like the way he developed his pieces. And in this position, Mike castled, which I think was a very good decision. Both players proceeded with their development, and now white played the move c3 with the idea of bringing the bishop back into play to have some threats. And that's why I'm saying it's tough. You're gonna play this, just be mindful that it's gonna be difficult to deal with some threats. Here with black, because you have a pawn down, you need to look for initiative. You need to look for moves with tempo to take advantage of the fact that you are developed a bit better than white is. See, they're behind with their development. These 3 pieces are not out yet. But if you give them 3-4 moves, they will be fine, and they will have an extra pawn, and you won't have much. Also, let's not forget, this knight is not placed very well. So how can you get some initiative with black? You need to find some place to attack. And based on the way your bishops are looking, they're looking towards the king side. So you definitely want to push these 2 pawns forward to open up your bishop. So you can start with f5. Say this queen moves back somewhere. Then you can consider bringing out your queen, maybe to h4. It's also with tempo. This rook could come to e8. Maybe go e4, f4, and f3. This would be something you might want to do. So if you want to play this at your lower level, it's not bad. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad. Just need to remind yourself that in order for you to actually get something from the position, you need to have a bit more active play. Make moves with tempo. Don't get into defensive mode. That's not going to be very helpful. So queen f6 is the first dubious choice of blacks, because first off, you're stopping the opportunity to push that pawn to get more space. You're blocking that. You have no threat with the queen here, and you are allowing also this move bishop c2, which is going to have to attract you to play g6, which is going to be a weakening towards your king, right? This pawn will be weak when white pushes the d pawn, which they did in this position. Your pawn is attacked. Now you got to figure out how you protect it, and it might require you to get a bit passive, like with queen g7 or something. In the game, Rated Bot played bishop f5 with tempo, but you see the pieces are kind of clogged in together here. There's no idea of bringing new pieces into the game, and now this knight is attacked, this pawn is attacked. If the knight moves, this pawn will be attacked as well, so he won't be able to protect everything. Went back bishop c7, and it allowed white to capture that pawn. Rook b8, but you see, what are you doing over here with the pieces where in fact you should play on this side of the board where you actually space? So b4 was played, which was probably not the best move for white, because it allowed black to consider this move. See, once again, this is the side of the board where you want to play. Leave that knight, anyways, it's badly placed. Get this bishop instead. When you take it, you can consider pushing and going for an attack. They capture, sure, you can take back with the queen, and if they take here, you want to kind of emphasize on this push. I think it might even work right now, although, you know, it's not such an easy task to build up the attack. You have 3 pawns down now, and you need to see how to do things. I would love to play this move, but you know, to attack here, but this allows white to bring in the queen. Maybe that's why we should play e4, and if they capture, then we can go here. Now we're attacking that pawn. You push it, who knows, maybe we can get the rook, and then he will be, you know, weak. These kind of things are stuff that you have to think about when you have material disadvantage. Build up some attack towards your opponent king, and that should be helpful to give you some play and make them feel uncomfortable. When black went back, white knew that they had to save their bishops, so that was a wise decision. I wasn't quite sure what this move was for. Maybe he was worried about the capture. Since the rooks are over here, you might want to open them, so this could have been an idea to do. And if you ever have the chance to kind of do some rook lift like that, you might want to consider it. So a6 was quite not quite helpful, and white is trying to trade some pieces. So trades are not in black's favor because of the material disadvantage. And now look at this, because g6 was played. This diagonal is weak now. Black has tried to attack the king, but you see with the queen there, where's this knight going to go? You have to think when you place a piece on a square, you have to think about the other pieces too. If you're taking a square away from another piece, then you might want to consider other spot, like maybe f4. Though I know it's going to be chased fast, but it's just difficult to play. It's difficult for me to suggest moves now for black because he's just very passive, and white just was able to build up a nice attack. And I'm going to show you how this attack finished off here. The queen and the bishop together. White didn't even need the development of those pieces because the king side remained weakened. And now check 6, and white missed this opportunity of playing c4 check, because if you go king to d6, we're going to have c5 check. The king has to go back, and now knight c3, deflecting the king from protecting the queen. This queen is going to be captured, and then white will eventually checkmate. White made a huge mistake here by trading queens despite having additional material. You know, missing such an opportunity sometimes can really change the pace of the game, but it wasn't sufficient for black to come back into the game later. So if we look further into the game, you can see that, you know, white still has the 2 pawns up. There have been some inaccuracies from both players, but overall, you know, it's just, like I said, very difficult to play without 2 pawns. So I'm gonna stop here with this game. Hopefully what I've suggested so far has been helpful to you, to everyone who's watching this video, and I certainly hope to see you in the next one. Let us know if you enjoy these videos, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.